Have you ever wondered, how do people get these gigs on podcasts? Or perhaps it is in blog posts and all sorts of things. Like, how do I become one of the people that has this voice out there? Today we're going to talk about that. We're going to be talking about how to become your own PR manager, and it is actually so much easier than what you expect. This is a role that I have been doing for one of my clients for about a year now, and we have managed to get her on so many cool podcasts. It's really opened up a lot of opportunities for her through collaborations and connections, and it's really helping to grow her business so much more than when we were focusing on social media. So what do we do first? How do you get in front of these? Step one is to decide what you actually want to talk about. So what kind of conversations do you want to be a part of? What message do you have for everyone? That's probably the key, clarifying that sort of idea. What's your brand about? How do you help people? What's your story? Sit down, do some journaling, figure out where's your voice. And if you're really not sure, like, conversations, what do I want to say? I have nothing unique to say. Think about your own story. What sort of parts of your story do you really want to share that you think might help others, or people might just be interested? Because people love hearing other people's stories, for sure. It's one of my favorite things is biographies. Think about how many biographies there are in the world, how many people read them, how many people buy them. So you always have something valuable to offer in your story alone as well. And then tying that into your business as well. How did that start your business? Why did you do what you do? All of that makes for great content that people are going to be really interested in hearing, and it's going to help you really connect on a sort of human soul level with your ideal customers. Okay, so part two is doing some research. Just get a list of podcasts or other media publications that you think your audience listens to or reads. Try to find quite a range. We don't want to be starting right out and we don't really have an audience and we are pitching the podcasts that have 500,000 subscribers. You want to be starting small, and there's nothing wrong with that. Small audiences are often dedicated to their host. They really trust them, and when they're bringing you on and talking about you, that builds some trust as well. So start small. That's the goal. Just make a list though. I like to make a really big list of everything I find while I'm doing my research phase. There are various podcast websites that you can go have a look at. I'll put a link to one in below that helps you just sort of search for what your niches and who you think you would connect to, and then order them. I like to highlight them from, say, the easiest to get into to the hardest, and you just base that on how many subscribers they have, what sort of other names that they are interviewing. If they're all really big names, then they're going to be in the harder sort of read category, and then if they're sort of medium, say to 10,000 to 100,000 followers, maybe that's an orange, and then below 10,000 that could be a green category. So lay them all out, just spend a bit of time, make a really big list. Your next step, you're going to start researching some of them. So pick a few on your green list and then listen to their podcasts, read the content, see what they're putting out there, see what you like about it, see what resonates with you. This is going to be a really vital key component to actually making those connections. And I think it's important, if you go into this entire process, that your ultimate goal is not to just get more clients. You're not going into this with a sales mindset. You're going into this to have really good connections with people. You're going into this to meet new people that are in your industry, to connect with the podcast host, go from a networking perspective of service and offering help and just having fun and building community. That side of thing is going to really help you stand out in authenticity and have fun, and fun is going to add to everything, and it's also going to help keep you motivated to keep going. So it's not like the goal is, I'm going to do this one podcast and I'm going to get 10 people subscribed to my course or my class or whatever it may be. you're going into it with like, I'm going to have fun and I'm going to try to help some people, and that will come off so much more authentically and you will enjoy the process so much more. So get involved in their content, know what they are putting out there, see if it aligns with you, see if there's something that maybe you could have a really interesting discussion on because you don't quite agree on it, and that could be fun as well. Or maybe there's something you do really like and you find really interesting. So listen and make some notes of anything that is key that you found that really stood out for you in some of their recent content or interviews that they have had with other people. That's the other thing. They should always be podcasts that are interviewing people. So there's no point in pitching a podcast that just is one person talking every single week and then never have guests. So make sure you are selecting media resources that have guest authors, guest podcasters, guest speakers, all that kind of thing. So that will be during your researching phase as well, and while you're doing this whole part. Step number 4 is you're ready to start pitching. So this is kind of the scariest part, but you will find that it's not as scary as what it comes out to be, and you will have quite a lot of fun with it. We've had about a 40% success rate for all of the pitches that we've sent out. We've only had one no. So when I say success rate, that is getting the podcast booked. We had one no, and to be fair, it was a really big podcast, and we were just like, why not? Let's give it a go after a few and see what happens. So we will definitely be pitching that again down the line, but it was a very bold move and it didn't work out, but hey, it could have. There's no harm done. The other ones were just no responses, and this is something that you're going to have to accept. It will happen. I'm surprised how many people aren't that organized with their inboxes, considering these are all business owners, but there's nothing personal in that. We all know how deep it can get. So don't take anything personally during the pitching process. You will get some yeses, you will get some no's, you will get some no responses, and that's just the way it is. For your pitch, you want to start off keeping it very brief, compelling. You want to be honest about what you are doing, make it very clear. Don't make it too lengthy, so do not write a novel. If you are quite a lengthy writer like myself, maybe get someone to proofread it and see which parts aren't really that vital that you can cut out. So your first 1 or 2, maybe 3 sentences are going to be a compliment about the show and the content, and be specific so that they know that you have actually listened to them. So you can be like, in this podcast episode, I really loved how you talked about this. It really resonated with me. Thank you so much for putting your content out. Make it personal, make it obvious, something that shows that you have actually listened to their content. If they are on Instagram, this is also a really great place for you to share it with your audience, because if these are sort of programs that you think your audience is going to be interested, that's going to be great value for them. And it also shows the host that you are really interested and you want to see them find more listeners and get their product out. You can mention this. You can be like, hey, I just shared this. I thought it would be really valuable for my viewers, my community as well. So thank you. Next, say you want to be a podcast host. Say what your pitch is. So come up with a couple ideas. I'd mainly pitch one at this point, but you can have like a couple ideas of conversations that you would like to have with people leading into this. So pitch one that you think would be really relevant. Obviously, it's not something that someone else has been talking about. Often I'd say something like, hey, I noticed that you haven't covered this, and I'm really passionate about talking about this. This is what I do, and I think it would help your audience because learning about this really helps us focus on XYZ. And then you can just end it with, if you have got any of these media things under your belt or any other collaborations, you can be like, I've talked about this with blah, 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 name drop a little bit, sort of helps show that you have experience as a speaker as well. If you don't have anything yet, don't worry about it, just leave this part blank and then sign off. I really look forward to talking about this with you in the future. And that's it. Very short and sweet. And keep it, I think a lot of the research sort of says under 200 words. So sort of aim to have it shorter. I definitely have had pictures that have been quite a bit longer because depending on what it is, I like to talk more in the first few sentences about what it really connected with, especially if it's something that really resonated with me and I thought was really valuable. And compliments go a long way. People love getting compliments, so don't sort of shy down on the compliments. Just make sure they are genuine compliments of things that you have really appreciated. Next, you are going to send it. This is maybe the hard part. So during your research phase, always make sure you're noting down email addresses when you come across them. You can also send someone an Instagram message being like, hey, I just sent you this email, but I don't typically do that. That's up to you if you want to connect with them on Instagram in that way as well. If you prefer like Instagram or one of the other social media channels for messaging, you could send your pitch over there as well and sort of tag them in the post that you've shared. I think email is typically a very more professional sort of platform, but it depends on your niche and your audience and your community and all of that and what works for you and what works for them. So if I was going to message on Instagram or something like that, I would also probably send an email as well and just say, hey, I've sent you an email. Send it. In the subject line, you can put collaboration opportunity, networking, love your podcast. Don't be cryptic about it. It's okay that they know as soon as they scroll down, it's something that's going to catch their eye and they'll be like, oh yeah, that's interesting. Or guest opportunity, guest podcast opportunity, anything like that. The next step, you are going to want to do a follow-up. If you do not hear from them within a week, within sort of 10 days, send a follow-up email. This bit can be a bit intimidating for a lot of people, and it's really easy. I've definitely done this before to be like, they didn't reply, obviously they hate me or something. Like they're not interested and they're never going to want to talk to me and that was so embarrassing. Don't do any of that. It is a mindset thing and most people are not thinking this as well. Think about your own inboxes. Think about how things get buried so easily. Think about the amount of times that I know I have, maybe you have, been like, that was interesting, I'm going to reply to that, but I'm going to do it later while I'm sitting down because I'm on the go or something, and I probably shouldn't have been checking my emails now anyway, so it was a compulsion thing. So don't take anything personally at this stage. Send a follow-up. It can be really simple. All it has to be is, I sent you an email last week about being a guest on your podcast. I would really love to connect with you and in some kind of way and collaborate as well. Great to hear back from you. All the best. Blah, blah, blah. And often you'll get people going, I'm so sorry, I meant to reply to you. Yes, I would love to have you as a guest. It sounds really interesting. You may also have people be like, actually, we've had a talk about this. And it doesn't happen very often, but they might be like, I actually talked about this with this person. Feel free, don't just say, no, okay, sorry, I didn't see that. Feel free to be like, that's great, sorry, I missed that one. I'll definitely go back and have a listen. I think that this way of talking about it, we could have a really great conversation that adds to that conversation as well. So feel free to pitch a slightly different idea or pitch a alternative idea to the topic you're already pitching. Pitch again. If you get that reply and it's not quite a yes, just pitch again. Remember, you're just adding value. You are not getting in the way. You're not bothering anyone. People that have these sort of content, they want people to bring content to them. It's tiring trying to think of ideas all the time. If you get someone that's like, hey, I would really love to talk about this with you and your audience, I think it'd be really interesting, and you're like, that sounds interesting, easy, schedule it in, rather than you, like me as a content creator, having to reach out to people constantly to find new things. It's very refreshing to have someone reach out and say that they want to collaborate with you. It's just nice. It's a nice feeling knowing that someone wants to connect. So think of it from sort of that perspective. Once you've landed it, That's gonna take a little bit of practice to get the few out. This is just something that you are going to have to practice. Make any notes that you need to. The main things are make sure that you have good audio equipment. I will put a link to this microphone that I use for all of my sort of desktop recording and things. It's a Yeti microphone. It's kind of like the highest scale on the amateur level, but it's still really affordable. So you don't have to use that, but just do some research. If you don't have audio equipment, make sure you get really good audio. Video comes second to audio. Audio is the boss. People are listening to you. They don't care. If you're on a podcast, they might not even have a video option anyway, but a lot of people do have the video recording as well. So video quality comes second to audio quality. In terms of talking, it's just going to take practice, and you just have to expect that the first 10 or so that you do are just in the practice category. Do not expect miracle results out of these in terms of getting exposure or getting anyone. You're getting your practice in. But this is kind of one of those things that once it starts, it keeps rolling. You're making connections. They want you to come back. They're doing something else. They think of you. So you're building your network, and that is the main goal of this stage as well. You've done a bunch of your podcast episodes or your guest articles or whatever it might be, and you're starting to build up a list. You're getting a bit of momentum. What do you do with those? So this comes back to the web design. So website pages that I would recommend you have, it would be a press page. On your press page, you would have a list of all of the places that you have been featured and links back to those places. And this really shows future people that you are trying to collaborate with that you have some experience, you are getting well known, and they can check that, and it's definitely a bit of a trust builder as well. The second reason I would recommend having this page is because it's really good for your SEO for your website. So one of the big things for getting you ranked in search engines is going to be backlinks, especially if you are in a health and wellness sort of sector. The algorithm treats health and wellness and finance businesses differently to like a hobby blog, for example, because there's more weighted on it in people's lives, if that makes sense. So definitely make sure that you are linking back to those site sources. It also helps with your backlinks linking back to you. It helps you recognize on your own website from a SEO point of view that you're like, yes, this is me. So that's really important because there might be some other Adrian Jarrett out there. I haven't come across one yet. It's a very unique surname, but there might be an Adrian Jarrett, which that's more common, that Google then gets confused and is like, oh, it's just a typo, and is like, I don't get as much juice for that because they think it's maybe that other person. But if you have the link anchoring to your website and they have a link sending back to your website, it's like this little sort of connection, and then the search algorithm's very easy for them to be like, oh yeah, that's the same person. We'll give them that good SEO juice. So there's two reasons for this page. It can just be like a one page, have a little bit about you, have a few sort of your features and a list of all of your features, and then I would include one to collaborate, and then have like a contact form. So if people want to start inviting you places, then they can through your contact form. The other really important website that you should have is some kind of landing page. So how are you going to convert the people that are really interested in learning more about you onto your email list? So we will talk more about email lists in the future, but have some kind of freebie at the end of your conversation. You can be like, hey, if you're interested, I have this, come join me over here. What is the goal of you doing all these podcasts in the first place? So it's to get new customers, to make more connections. Where are you going to send them? So make sure you have like even just a basic email landing page. I would recommend having something that links like to a URL for your website rather than just a ConvertKit one, because it's more future proof. I hope you found that helpful, and if you did, please put a like and subscribe in the bottom, and make sure you'll get more notified for more website design and marketing tips.